Customers thought their elderly DoorDash driver was just working to supplement his retirement. Miguel Santos had spent 38 years stopping smugglers, and the food deliveries were mapping trafficking routes. Welcome to the Hidden Professionals. Before we discover how a food delivery driver exposed a multi-million-dollar human trafficking network, tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed unusual patterns in delivery requests to your neighborhood? And if you believe these stories of hidden heroes deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These stories save lives. The gig economy had transformed how millions of Americans supplemented their income, with food delivery services like DoorDash connecting hungry customers to their favorite restaurants through the convenience of mobile apps and independent contractors who earned flexible income driving their own vehicles. In cities across the country, delivery drivers navigated neighborhoods at all hours, bringing meals to families, office workers, and late-night customers who depended on the reliability and safety of professional food delivery services. Miguel Santos had been driving for DoorDash in El Paso, Texas for 2 years, delivering meals throughout the sprawling border city with the kind of meticulous attention to routes, timing, and customer service that made him one of the platform's highest-rated drivers in the region. At 71, he looked exactly like what he claimed to be, a retired grandfather who enjoyed staying active and meeting people while earning supplemental income to support his grandchildren's college education and maintain his independence during retirement years. But Miguel's analysis of delivery patterns and neighborhood dynamics went far beyond normal food service observations. While most food delivery drivers focused on efficient routes, customer satisfaction, and maximizing earnings per hour, Miguel automatically analyzed address patterns, order timing, and residential characteristics with the trained eye of someone who understood how criminal organizations used legitimate services to coordinate illegal activities while appearing to engage in completely normal commercial transactions. What the DoorDash platform algorithms didn't know was that Miguel Santos had never been just a retiree earning extra income. For 38 years, he'd been Agent Miguel Santos, United States Border Patrol, specializing in human smuggling operations, trafficking route analysis, and criminal networks that moved people across international borders while using legitimate businesses and residential properties to coordinate operations that generated millions of dollars in illegal revenue through systematic exploitation of vulnerable populations seeking better lives in America. His retirement 2 years ago had been earned through nearly 4 decades of some of the most dangerous border enforcement work in federal law enforcement. His ability to recognize smuggling patterns and safe house operations had been permanent. "Thank you, Mr. Santos," called Maria Rodriguez as Miguel delivered her family's Friday night dinner order. "You're always so reliable and careful with our food." But his trained eye was already noting that this was the 6th time this month when certain addresses had received multiple food deliveries during specific timing windows, involving orders that seemed unusually large for residential properties, with payment methods and tip patterns that suggested coordination rather than normal family dining. What bothered Miguel wasn't the volume of food delivery requests. Urban areas include apartment complexes, family gatherings, and people who prefer delivery convenience over cooking. What concerned him was the pattern of delivery locations that matched techniques he'd observed during smuggling investigations where criminal organizations used residential safe houses to coordinate human trafficking while maintaining the appearance of normal neighborhood activity. Over the next month, Miguel found himself conducting the kind of operational analysis that had characterized his Border Patrol career. Not obvious law enforcement work, just the systematic observation of delivery patterns that distinguished normal food service from systematic coordination designed to support criminal activities. The evidence was becoming clear. The suspicious delivery locations occurred at specific intervals that allowed information exchange and personnel movement without extended contact. The addresses involved recently rented properties with minimal residential indicators and unusual occupancy patterns. And most concerning, Miguel recognized specific coordination techniques and operational security measures that indicated professional human trafficking rather than normal residential food consumption. What the DHS director didn't know was that she just asked one of the Border Patrol's most experienced human trafficking investigators to design detection systems for protecting gig economy services from exactly the kind of criminal coordination Miguel had spent his career fighting and dismantling. Miguel never told his DoorDash customers about his Border Patrol background or the trafficking operations he'd dismantled. He never mentioned the smuggling networks he'd prosecuted or the criminals he'd helped convict for exploiting vulnerable migrants and destroying families through systematic trafficking and forced labor operations. He just delivered food orders throughout El Paso, provided reliable service that supported local restaurants and customer convenience, and quietly monitored delivery patterns that indicated traffickers were using residential safe houses while endangering the vulnerable people who trusted criminal organizations to help them find better lives in America. But word spread through border enforcement circles that if anyone noticed unusual delivery patterns or suspected trafficking coordination in residential areas, they probably should consult with the DoorDash driver covering El Paso's east side routes. Not officially, of course, just as a professional courtesy to someone who understood how human smuggling operations worked. Every evening from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., Miguel continued his delivery operations. He served customers who depended on food delivery convenience, supported local restaurants that relied on delivery platforms for revenue, and monitored neighborhood activities with the kind of operational analysis that had kept him at the forefront of border enforcement for nearly 4 decades. Most evenings, the biggest challenge was navigating traffic efficiently and ensuring that every food order arrives hot and on time while maintaining the customer service standards that support both restaurant partners and hungry families. But some evenings, when his trained instincts recognized patterns that indicated criminal coordination, Miguel Santos was exactly where he needed to be, between vulnerable migrants and traffickers who would exploit desperate people for profit while using legitimate services to coordinate systematic human exploitation. Because that's what you do when you've spent your career fighting human trafficking. You don't stop protecting vulnerable people when you retire. You just find a new way to ensure that legitimate services serve customers rather than criminal organizations. And sometimes, the most important anti-trafficking work in a region is provided by someone who looks like they're just delivering dinner, but who knows exactly what coordination patterns look like and refuses to let traffickers exploit vulnerable migrants in any community he serves. Miguel had spent 38 years investigating criminals who use sophisticated operational techniques to exploit vulnerable people while generating illegal revenue through systematic human trafficking that destroyed families and communities. Now he spent his retirement ensuring that food delivery services remain focused on customer convenience rather than providing coordination opportunities for criminal organizations that target desperate migrants seeking better lives in America. The mission was the same. The criminals were the same. The only difference was that now, instead of investigating trafficking crimes after vulnerable people were exploited and families were destroyed, he was preventing criminal coordination by recognizing the patterns before traffickers could establish systematic operations in residential communities. And every evening, as families enjoyed convenient food delivery in neighborhoods dedicated to community life and safety, Miguel Santos worked with the eyes and experience of someone who knew the difference between normal commercial activity and criminal coordination, ready to protect both the vulnerable migrants and the communities that depend on legitimate services, remaining focused on customer service rather than providing opportunities for systematic human exploitation. So the next time your DoorDash driver delivers your dinner with unusual attention to detail and neighborhood awareness, remember that the person ensuring your food arrives safely might have expertise far beyond route efficiency. The driver protecting your delivery experience might be the same person who spent their career fighting criminal organizations that exploit vulnerable people seeking better lives in America. Have you ever met someone like Miguel? Someone whose gig economy work perfectly positioned them to protect vulnerable populations using their professional expertise. Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the quiet professionals who never stop ensuring that legitimate services serve customers rather than criminal coordination. Thank you for watching The Hidden Professionals. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it with someone who believes in protecting vulnerable migrants from human trafficking. Because the world needs more people like Miguel Santos, professionals who understand that some protection is too important to end with retirement. Until next time, remember that guardians come in all forms. Sometimes they wear federal badges and patrol international borders. Sometimes they deliver food and monitor neighborhood patterns. But they're always protecting vulnerable people from exploitation, always ensuring that legitimate services serve customers rather than criminal coordination. And sometimes, the most important anti-trafficking work in your community comes from someone who spent their career learning exactly how human smuggling operates and refuses to let traffickers exploit vulnerable migrants in any community he calls his delivery route.